Justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stargate to the Cosmos. And I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. And my producer is Thomas Becker. And our guests, we have two guests today. The first hour is Elizabeth Anglin, and the second hour is Dr. Louis Turi. So Elizabeth began researching her alien abduction experiences with Dr. John Mack in early 1990 after receiving a referral from Budd Hopkins. She became one of the original Mack support group members and a peer mentor for other abductees at the Program for Extraordinary Experience Research. One of the highest pedigreed abduction research subjects, she experienced a group abduction with police involvement as a teenager and had an implant that was studied by Dr. David Pritchard at MIT with help from other scientists at the University of Michigan and Harvard. Elizabeth spoke about her lifelong alien abduction and contact experiences at Harvard and MIT, and was the last experiencer to speak in public to the Harvard Inquiry Committee at the open forum at the Macht Building before the committee decided to stop investigating John Mack and allow him to continue on with his alien abduction research without censure. Elizabeth currently works as a multi-modality, multidimensional intuitive and energy healer in private practice worldwide via phone and Skype and in person at Starshine Gallery in Madrid, New Mexico. Her book, Experience, Memoirs of an Abducted Childhood, chronicles childhood alien experiences and is available on Amazon. She's also the current publisher of Alien Discussions, Proceedings from the Abduction Studies at MIT. And her next book is Inquiry, Memoirs of an Alien Abduction Research Subject. It's due late winter, early spring in 2019. It's about adult experiences, regression work with Dr. Mack and the Harvard Inquiry. So, Dr. Lessin, what would you like to say before we bring on Elizabeth?
Okay, so Elizabeth's story is really inspiring. It's how you just see how a person like Elizabeth has matured and taken her experience to the next level and is using it to really help other people. And I'm really excited for you all to learn just what her life experiences are and what it has done for her and for humanity.
And we got to meet Elizabeth recently at the Stargate to the Cosmos Expo in New Mexico. And she's such a delight. We got to hang out sometime and we got to know each other pretty well. So welcome to our show, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. I'm very pleased to be here.
Yes, we're so happy to have you here. So what was that like for you to be amongst all those other experiencer, abductee, contactees, secret space program researchers, etc., at the expo?
Well, I'm hopeful that you can repeat the event, at least in some way, again in the future, because it was pretty wonderful to be around other experiencers and other experiencers who are working to do something in the world with what they've been through. So it was like being around my people for the most part, and laughing and joking, and we did karaoke. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but even just getting a sense of other people and where they're at was pretty cool. When I came back, though, I did go for the first time in a long time into full-out flashback mode, because I met a few people that I had met previously in experiences, and I went back into those experiences, and then I was walking around on Wednesday going, oh, I'm having flashbacks. This hasn't happened in 20 years. Well, I should probably slow down on remembering stuff. So it
wow.
it was really intense what, the work I did afterward, but and then going, oh, right, I was at the coffee shop talking to people, and I was flashing back, like, the flashback scene was running in the sky behind their heads, and I'm like, all right, that's been like early 90s, so it was really over 20 years.
That's something to examine a little bit closer here, because I find that when I'm around experiencers, I start getting more and more information. It's like we trigger each other and activate each other and remember more things. And some of us have actually had experiences with each other. I remember when I encountered a couple boyfriends that I had been on board ship with as children. And boy, that was trippy, because here we were as adults, and we were, full-on lovers. And there was apparently some connection that was started back in the, in teenage years or childhood years, the knowing. So when you met them, 20 years later in real life, it was like there was this bond already. And that's why it was so easy to go into a relationship. So tell us a little bit more about if you can, your flashbacks. And do you have any particular memories?
I can tell you, and I can tell you non-specifically, because it does involve another person in specific, but what the difference, and I can tell you about another situation at another conference where this happened. This was a person who I'd been set up with from a young age, and I didn't remember him, but I knew there was somebody else out there, because I've gone through and met a few people that I was set up with, and I when I was younger, and one was the father of one of my kids who's human that lives with the aliens, and this one that I met again, I'm still figuring out if there are any progeny or what happened with that, because this was specifically my labs, where the other one was alien. I'm a rehab. And it's really clear to me that there is a difference between being, or there can be a difference between being mainly a MyLab or being mainly an alien abductee or being a rehab. And I knew I was a rehab when I worked with
What's a rehab? Explain the term rehab.
You get re-abducted by the military so they can figure out what the aliens are doing. So you think... You don't come in basically with any agreement to do anything for the military, but they notice that you're getting abducted by aliens, and then they start taking you. So that, in the research with Dr. Mack, I knew I was re-abducted almost within 2 days, if maybe at most 3 days after an alien abduction. I would have a military/reptilian abduction, and maybe even 2 within the week. So there was a time period I was getting abducted 3 times a week, and it was terrible for like 7 years.
So let me ask you about that. I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't want to get too far down the road here, because there's some questions that are coming up. How do you know how the military knows that you're getting abducted? Is there some kind of database? I mean, what are they? Are they monitoring you 24/7?
I have a tendency to think that we who have implants may have different, but I don't know for sure. I know that I had alien. I'm not abducted anymore, for people who want to know. I go to work on a project that I work on with the aliens. I don't get abducted by the military, and those ended when I was 31, and I don't get abducted by aliens. So I want to make that really, really clear. Mm-hmm. I think, though, that there are different types of implants. Some implants are more human-based, and I had a conversation with Dr. Ronnie Kildee back in the mid-'90s about this, and she was talking about the more human-based implants that you could have, which are basically like tracking devices, and they're not at all like the alien implant that I had taken out, which was carbon-13, which we now know makes graphene, and it was carbon-13 in a 40 millimeter or 40 nanometer wire that was unbreakable, that had this really unique interior structure. Well, I don't know if people know this, but when you roll graphene, you can create a quantum computer, because you're basically able to bounce fermions back and forth between the atoms. And so that's why graphene's so lovely, and why everybody wants to do material science with it. Back in 1990, 1991, when my implant was being studied, nobody had a frickin' clue why that was made out of carbon-13. They were like, what is this? So that's really advanced tech. And I think, by and large, what I've experienced, I'm not at all saying anything about what anybody else has experienced. What I have experienced is that the aliens have much greater tech than the military does. Now, other people say, oh, no, we've got this and we've got that and we've got the other thing. And it's like, a lot of my re-abduction experiences were quite boring, in the sense that they were just trying to pull things out of me or find out things from me about what the aliens were doing. So I don't know. I mean, I'm still on the fence about that. But I think military abductees get chipped and watched. And I think alien
did they hurt
abductees
you
for other purposes.
Did
they
these
ever
soldiers
hurt me?
Did they hurt you? Yeah.
Well, they were rougher, but usually the thing that I noticed about it was they would either pretend to be reptilians, or they were working with a group of reptilians that were really quite dehumanizing. Like they were, but aliens can be dehumanizing as well, because they're so utilitarian. But these follow-up experiences, I would come back with more issues than the initial alien abduction, which is usually like what people know as the Zeta Greys, and a whole big group of them that are different colors and different sizes and etc. So, but the military ones were usually rougher, and I didn't like them at all. Like, it was like, I don't have time for this. I really don't want to know. I wish you guys would just leave me the F alone. And, so
were they twisting your arm? Were you in chains? Did they hit you?
Did they hit me? No, but I had one experience where after a baby was taken, they were so rough with me down there that I almost bled to death after they took me. Yeah, which is not a good thing. It's like, that's not good. I'm not happy with that. But it was after the second abduction. It wasn't after the first. So
I always feel so bad about people that get roughed up. I've never had, when they did the follow-up with me, I walked into the office, we talked for hours, it was pleasant, and then this thing happens to so many people, and it's very upsetting. Very upsetting.
Well, there's nothing like change, but I did get restrained in some of these things that I remembered from this past week, that there were physical restraints involved. When you're on the alien ship, there aren't any physical restraints involved. When you're doing the military ones, they'll use physical restraints. Their tech is just not anywhere near the same, and so they don't have the level of sophistication and the ability to do certain things without causing at least some kind of damage. It may not be huge damage, but it can cause some kind of damage. So also, the people that are doing it, it's very all I can say it's dehumanizing, and a different sort of dehumanizing. It's a more manipulative, like the bonding between people that you're partnered up with is more about manipulation than it is with the aliens, in my opinion. With the aliens, they're just like, ooh, make really strong babies, love each other, have lots of energy together. And with the military, it's more about, well, if you do this for us, then you get this, which could be a pretty girl or, a guy or whatever. So depending on the bonding.
But you were hurt with one of your implants. If I understand, it caused you pain.
Well, implants can cause pain when you have changes in your energy structure, but the implant that came out of me was simply a tech on an alien ship doing a bad job of putting it in, and what happened was I ended up with a mass of gunk in my nasal passages the morning after it was put in. Within hours of it being put in, my body started to attack it. My body recognized it as a foreign object, and it wasn't in the right place, and it was trying to. So there was a lot of inflammation and a lot of, goop, and so there was a tremendous amount of
had that.
Pain.
I had that when they did an implant when I was in kindergarten, so I was probably 5, and they did it the night before. When I woke up, I kept sneezing and sneezing and sneezing, and my mother, I had to stay home from school because I couldn't stop sneezing. So is that something like what happened with you?
Yeah, I woke up in the morning with a sinus headache to beat the band, with a neck ache, and with flashbacks from the experience the night before of being on a ship and walking from place to place, which is, and then in seeing certain people that I knew, waiting for things to happen, and then So I had a full flashback or full flashback / partial conscious memory, but I also had this throbbing in my, in the corner of my left eye and the top of the bridge, the top of my nose as it goes into the eyebrow bone, and I was sneezing and literally could. It's funny because I have this cold again today where I can't breathe. I literally couldn't breathe, so I was doing everything I could to get this goop out of my head. And when I got the goop out, the implant came out with it. So not to put too much on it. So yeah. Anyway, but the other, in terms, I've been burned by alien techs before by accident. I've had things go wrong by accident with aliens before, but they're not by and large rough. And the military can be rough and so and boring. Like I wasn't really feeling like I was learning anything, so I didn't concentrate on those when I was going through the research because I didn't feel like anything positive was coming out of that. It was just, oh, crap, leave me alone, just let me be, Stop.
But you can't really escape it, though. They have it just as, yeah, so they just got you.
Did you ever try?
When I changed... Oh, go ahead,
Did
Sasha.
you ever try to get out of this situation? Did you ever, John or anybody try to help you not be pushed around by the military like this?
Well, John was interesting. He didn't, he was just doing research, so he didn't want to push anybody in any direction by having too much of an opinion, and sometimes that was really annoying to those of us. Like, for a while there, he was covering his own butt with, well, I don't know that there's anything physical happening. And all of us who are in his group are going, yes, you do. This could just be from the spiritual realm trying to make a correction. Oh, you are so full of crap. And so, we would talk about him behind his back going, how dare you say that's not what our message is. Our message is, yes, this is physically happening. For a lot of us, for some people who would go to see him who thought they just had some dreams, it was less clear. But for the initial core of people, myself being one of them, it was, no, this is why else would they be doing a hybrid program with babies? If you're not physical, you don't need a body. Hello, logic, reason. So, we and sometimes he could be obtuse. And later on, as we got to know him better, oh, look, John's being obtuse. And it had to do with the fact that he was doing research and his own bias on the research, which no matter who you are, wherever you come from with this situation, you will put your bias on it. It just happens. So, so he didn't help me, but when I realized I could get out of abductions, when I realized that I had personal sovereignty, I got myself out of all abductions at the same time, and that included the military. And this is something I did consciously. This was like a light bulb went out, and I went, hey, wait a second. I'm a human being. I have free will. I have free will on this planet. I am so out of these. and I did a, divine intervention with Mother Mary, who I have worked with for a long time, and Archangel Michael they were my mediators and my witnesses. And I just went to the powers that be that I had the agreements with, and I changed them. And military ended and aliens ended both.
Wow!
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
You're free.
That's the same thing Bill does. Exactly, just like that.
What's that?
We're getting really a lot of interference. What did you say, Sasha?
Oh, yeah, in the training in spirit releasement therapy that I took from Bill Baldwin in New York, that's exactly what we do. We proclaim our own sovereignty, just like that.
Right. Just like that. You really have to know it. It can't be like you're not begging some higher power. You're not making a bargain. I did a little bit of bargaining because I did still want to see my kids. And I thought, well, if they put so much work in me, and I know I have this certain set of skills, I want to use that as something I can do that's helpful to human beings and other beings, that's compassionate, that's helpful. So, I just changed it so that the skills and the things that I knew could be used in a positive way versus, any kind of negative way or any negative way to me. So I did.
Well, that's curious that you can negotiate your contract. So and to me, it indicates that this is something that's going on a higher level, like a soul contract before you come here, or some kind of agreements. Because we know that, like, the powers that be in the Illuminati, they have to put everything out there. It's like, and then if we don't come against it, it's almost like we're in agreement. There's something going on in that line that they have to tell us. So we already know, but if we don't protest or do something, we agree. Yeah.
Here's the thing that I became even stronger about coming out of the Stargate conference. And again, this is not to in any way put down or disaffirm the people who were talking about the MyLabs experiences, but you have to be so certain of your personal sovereignty. Anything that you agree to that puts a limitation on your own power and gives somebody else the power is a limitation that you agree to in the universe. So I heard some people say some things that really were disempowering because they were putting limitations on their own powers and were giving power to military or other organizations or other groups. And at some point, that is not a helpful. It's not a positive way to live. I lived that way for with knowledge that I was disempowered by the aliens and by the military for 7 years. It's not a helpful way to live. But it's also not necessarily a true and accurate message of the situation, in my opinion. Now, other people have said to me, well, you got out. It doesn't mean everybody can get out. And I'm like, I kind of think it does, but there might be other factors that I'm not aware of. So I'm not going to belabor it too much, but it did come down to me that my message is really, you can get out. Somebody's saying, no, nobody gets out. It's not true. You can get out.
Well, that seems to correlate with my experience, is that, I have good experiences, and there's something that I've done that's created it to be more positive rather than in a victim mode. And I'm not sure what I've done, but it might be on that line that I've had some kind of agreement that I've struck with them. And I am in control. I am empowered. I'm not in victim. I'm like, okay, we're here and we're doing this together, and what's going on. And I just have this whole other level with my experiences, and it saddens me when people have these negative experiences. But there is something on what you're saying that's true. That it's something that they're perhaps
something that they're working. It may just be a human thing that we are working out in this realm. About our free will. It may be about personal sovereignty. It may be about, it may be about belief in karma, belief in, well, I did this bad thing, so now I got to suffer for it. It may be, it could be any number of things, because everybody processes and learns and has different lessons too. So that's why, but I think if you're really willing to entertain the fact that you do have free will and you are sovereign here, you can change your situation significantly for a much better one, as long as you're willing to go with that. I mean, I just went with it. One day it occurred to me, and I was like, okay, I'm out of here. It's like I just all of a sudden really believed it, and I'd been banging my head up against the wall of, oh, crap, this keeps happening. I can't make it stop. I can't make it stop. And then, the next thing I know is like, yes, I can. What am I saying? I can't. I can, and I will, and I am. So I did.
Now, if they invited you as an equal, would you go engage with them on more of like an ambassador level, now that you're conscious and aware of the whole dynamic?
Well, not the military per se, but I do that with the aliens, and I'm not one of these people that I'm going to say, oh, I'm the high mucky muck ambassador of, whatchamacallit. I'm really more of an ambassador to things that get lost and things that get lonely, and things that aren't human that are lost and lonely. And that need a little helping hand. But that's because that...
What do you mean by things that are lost and lonely and need a helping hand? Could you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by that?
Well, because of the hierarchy with the group of aliens that worked with me from a young age, whenever pilots wreck a ship, they will often leave the ship behind, and and they will not report it, because that could lead to them being a janitor instead of a pilot, and it's much better to be a pilot than be a janitor. And so you do have a lot of cloaked ships that are hanging out in the world that have minor repairs that are necessary, and then they can get on their way and either go back to the collective or, make another decision. And I'm kind of AAA for lost and lonely ships. And that's what I do. So, and that's an ambassador position, because it's like, oh, right, they left you behind because they're being jerks because they want to stay pilots and they don't want to be janitors,
So
That's rude.
you're talking about them like they're conscious. Are you talking about the ships being conscious? Or
these are the ones that they call the extruded ones. They're beings that are interdimensional beings, and basically they get parts, metallic alloys and quantum computing stuff. They get stuff built around them, but they're actually beings, and they are meant to be in connection with another being or other beings. It's very difficult for them to be alone. And so when they do get left behind, they will try to connect with other beings in that area, and sometimes those other beings are humans, and sometimes they're bears, and sometimes they're, depending on how. And the other thing is they have a lot of mind control capabilities, or they have a lot of telepathic abilities. So if they get very, very sad and dejected and go to dark places, you'll get the sense that something very sad and dejected and dark is happening in that area, and it's not a good thing. But if they're happy and focused on the positive, then you could find all of a sudden you're walking into a place in the forest where there's a tremendous amount of wildlife, and the trees are very green, and and oftentimes that might be a ship who's connected with a mama bear and cubs, or they figured out how to get their connection without being part of the alien connection, and they're doing that thing, and they're just improving the quality of life for everything around them. So it's not the uber most spectacular ambassador job in the universe, but I like it. Because,
So how do they get a hold of you? How do these ships find you?
I have a person on the other side who basically is involved in the ship creation. He's one of the main designers that they have, and we had probably a between lifetime agreement because I knew him from the time I was a little girl. So whatever situation that is, I've known him for a very, very long time, and he's, I basically get sent out on jobs by him. So I go.
Wow, wonderful. So that's amazing. Sasha, you have any questions, feedback, comments?
Elizabeth, I'd like you to tell about that initial experience you had with that group experience. One of your interesting things is that other people had the same experience and you witnessed each other.
Oh, well, we didn't. I was going to tell you that story when I was on before the conference. We didn't. Okay, so what happened is when I was 17 and an experiencer got put back after a mistake was made, and he got put back in his room dead, naked and dead in the middle of his floor in his bedroom. And his dad was a sheriff's deputy for the county sheriff, and there were no guns or knives that were out. There was nothing that could have killed him in the room. He had not been out of the room, and he basically had a hole in his head that appeared to be cauterized, and there wasn't enough blood. So, and I've seen these tools on ships before, which they're kind of ceramic, but they turn into basically a laser light. They phase shift, and they do work on you with these phase shifted tools. Well, again, some tech made a mistake and burned a hole in his head, or basically phase shifted part of his head out of existence, and rather than admit to it, they put him back. Well, this caused a panic in our town, and when the sheriff's department and the police found his journals, they found that he had been writing about, quote-unquote, elves and fairies who were coming in ships, and some of the kids that he knew, and myself being one of them, and another friend, and actually two different friends being involved with this group. And so we got put under watch for the week after he had died. And in that time period, not knowing that this was going on completely, just knowing that he had died in a weird way. And one of my best friends was one of his best friends. I did not talk to him because he had freaked me out when I was in 8th grade and said, "I've seen you naked on a ship. I know who you are." And I'm like, "Stop talking about that. You can't say those things in school." And, follow me around and say, "I've seen you naked." And
wow.
So I did not befriend him. Basically, he was too cognizant of what was going on, and I did not befriend him, but she did. And so just after he died, I was basically consoling her, and we were going to a party. We came back. We went to sleep at her house on this long circular couch that fit 2 people end to end in the basement, and where the TV was, a TV room in the basement. And her dad noticed lights on the lawn and then went to go check on everyone, and she and I were gone. Her mother knew we had gone to bed, and then he noticed the lights on the lawn, and she and I were gone. And they called the police. They called my father. They called, all of a sudden there was a cast of a gazillion people, her brothers and sisters, their parents, my dad. People showed up at my house, which was 20 minutes away from there, and took my journals and said they were with the FBI, but they weren't, because we never got them back, and we never had a pink slip, which they're supposed to give people. So all of my journals and dream journals were taken while I was out, and everybody was out looking for us. And while they were out looking for us, we were put back on the couch, and we didn't know what had happened. And so everybody was treating us very strangely. When we woke up in the morning, and I was getting the 3rd degree from her father, who was the town district attorney. So imagine, you come back from you wake up in the morning, you have this beautiful breakfast laid out in front of you, and the town district attorney is giving you the 3rd degree. That's what happened. And then I found out when I got home what had happened that night, and I got put under house arrest for 3 days with people out front. And I still got a phone call. On the phone, my parents decided, my stepmother had had enough after 3 days, and she said, "We got to get milk. We got to go to the store." And she packed her kids and my dad up in a car and left me in the house alone. And the next thing that happens is I get a phone call with one of those weird mechanized voices saying, "We know you're in there alone, and we're coming in." And I'm going, "Oh, no, you're not. F you," and hanging up the phone and running over to the neighbors. And anyway, this ended up with me going to a friend's house. She came and picked me up, and we went to her house, and her mom did a Course in Miracles. And she had the presence of mind to say, "What do you want to happen out of this situation?" And I said, "I don't want to be afraid anymore. I don't want to be thinking anybody wants to kill me or abduct me." And she goes, "All right, well, let's sit down and pray for that." And we did, and I woke up in the morning, and I wasn't afraid, and I wasn't afraid anybody was going to kill me or abduct me. So, that worked to the extent that it worked for that situation. But, yeah. And that family were still friends. I still talk with the girl I was abducted with and with her sister. And, there's no difference in the storyline between her and I and the family. We all know that happened, and it was not a small thing. So,
wow. So, what else? So you've had these things, and this poor child was returned, and then he was no longer. Anything else on that line that happened?
I had a horse that was cut open. His chest was cut open and a triangular wound, and so that you could see his heart beating underneath. You could lift open a flap and see the heart beating under the exterior muscle just over the heart. I was really terrified because my friend got put back dead, and that's the only reason why I ended up doing the research. I think I would have stayed in denial and I probably would have had some sort of addictive disorder in the process, either food or sex or alcohol or all of the above. So the fact that I was so scared by what happened at 17 was that what happened is that finally when I was able to deal with it, and when it was time, it seemed like timing was important too. The alien showed up on November 29th, 1989, which was the same night that Linda Cortile, or Linda Napolitano, was taken out of her place in Brooklyn. They showed up, and I had a conscious experience with a bunch of aliens in my apartment. And because of the timing, because it was the exact same night as Linda's, when I called Budd Hopkins, he said, "Yeah, I want to talk to you." And then he talked to me for a while and referred me on to John, who had just started to get interested in alien abduction. So if I hadn't been so scared at 17, I don't think I would have gone into it. I think I would have just let it be. So it mattered that happened.
So what year was that? Do you remember?
That was 1983 that my friend David, well, not my friend, my mutual, David was killed in 1983, and then November 29th, 1989 was when I had the conscious experience that made me call Budd Hopkins, and then I started talking with John in January of 1990, and then really started doing research in May of 1990.
Well, Dr. Lessin knew John Mack when they were both studying together with Stan Groff. Sasha, was that around the same period when that we're talking about where this happened? Are you there, Sasha?
I think we've lost
Sasha. Sasha.
Janet, you're wearing my name out. You're wearing my name out.
When were you and John started studying together under Stan Groff? Do you remember what time period it was? Was he telling you about what he was finding in his research?
Yes.
And was that correlated with what you were finding with...
Yeah,
go ahead.
Sure, of course.
Go ahead. Talk about it. Tell us about it.
Yeah.
He just... you could see his transformation at the end of the 3-year program. We took the mandalas that we had drawn, and you could see how he expanded John expanded his consciousness to not be limited to the material. It was just there in this transformation of the person.
So what effect did the ET contact have in his transformation that you observed?
It broke his materialist bias that he needed to restrain all information and communication to the material, and that we needed to account for the other sphere in order to really get the essence of things. And he was, just exactly like Elizabeth said, he was cautious and trying not to offend guys by not talking straight. But everybody knows that he had direct spiritual experiences just like the rest of us.
Yeah. I mean, he was very frustrating in terms of, we were talking about something that we often would have past life things come up during experiences. We had aliens. I had an alien tell me, I can't speak for other people even though I know they did too. I had an alien tell me that, that basically the whole thing was about how we experience life. And if you make new bodies that have different combinations of genes in different ways, you end up with beings that experience life in a completely new and different way. And that's part of spiritual evolution as well as physical evolution in this 3D plane, if you will. And so this was from when our first experience. That's what the doctor who was working on me in the hybrid program, it was very odd because it was as if the alien was talking directly to John to answer the question, like through me, even though even though I had already had the experience. But he was basically saying, look, this is a spiritual experience we are having in this plane. But if our bodies are not open to, our bodies are not open to that spiritual experience, or our bodies are limited in some way by what they can experience, it's less rich and it's less full. And it's also, there is this desire for spirits to experience new things, not just the same thing over and over again. So, this was from the first regression I had, where John was there, where all of a sudden, boom, you've got this alien saying, yeah, well, it is spiritual, but it's about the spirit and the body, both together. And I don't think that he had, I don't know what he made of that at the time. At the time I was in that regression, I was just like, yeah, I knew that. I've been working with these guys for years. I knew that. Of course I knew that. It's no big deal to me. But to John, it was a big deal. He didn't know that. He hadn't been working with aliens for years. It wasn't just something running in the background of his programming. And so he did change quite a bit and become more interested in the spirit than the physical, and that's a wonderful thing for him. As a research subject, it was hard to be in the situation. Like, he would always say, well, you guys are my teachers. And in a way that was true, but it was hard to sometimes be his teacher and feel like, seriously, we're going over this again? We've been talking about this since the first regression. We're still talking about it, So, but I guess sometimes it felt like he had to ask the question again and again and again and again and again just to be certain. And
he's censured in his intellect to a large degree, and it's easy for people that are heart-centered to get it, but it's very difficult for somebody who perceives the world mainly from their intellect to be able to ever break free of that lens. Yeah.
But he did it in the way he was able, I think, by the end to do it. And I think his next lifetime is going to be very heart-centered versus very mentally centered. He and I have had conversations from the other side on this, and he seems quite happy to have the next time have a very heart-centered life. So,
Oh, that's interesting. Cool. What kind of things has he conveyed to you? Was he one of the ones, did he tell you when he went out of body that he was okay? I know that he had some communications.
Yes. Well, what happened was when I got a call, I had moved to New Mexico about 6 months in April, and he died in September. And I got a call from Leslie Hansen, who had been his assistant. When I was at work, she managed to track me down at work because she knew I was working at the University of New Mexico. She managed to get through to me. And even though I was temping there, she managed to get through. And she called me and she said, John is passed. And she goes, I know that you would want someone to tell you personally instead of hearing it on the news. And I was like, yeah, I would, Yeah. And I started to cry, and they let me out of work, a little bit early. It was the end of the day anyway, because I was like, whoa! And I had to take a bus from the University of New Mexico. I was a temporary assistant to the head of clinical affairs. I had to take a bus to where my car was parked. And when I was in the back of the bus, because I didn't want anybody to see me crying, I just felt John's presence and him coming through, and him saying, "No, really, it's all right. It's really okay." And then I got out of the bus, and I walked over to my car. It's windy. It's September, dry wind, New Mexico, and right in front of my car door is a Gideon's Bible that is completely covered with wet. It's all wet, and it's face down with pages. It's open to a certain page. So imagine you take a book and you treat it badly, and you open it up, and then you put the open pages face down. So right in front of my door is this Gideon's Bible that's all wet, pages open, face down. I pick it up because I'm like, there are no cars near my car at this point. I'm like, okay, nobody just left me a Gideon's Bible that's all wet in front of my car door because there's nobody around, and it's New Mexico, and this will dry in like 30 seconds, right? So I look at what it's turned to, and it's turned to John.
Oh, wow.
And it's turned to the first passages on the page are where Christ is saying to turn the other cheek because you know, in the Gideon's Bible, it's basically your enemy is you, or you are the same person. It's about the connection between us and other people, that you are connected. So, you know, love your neighbors as you love yourself, you know, turn the other cheek because your enemy is also you. So however that was worded, if anybody has a Gideon's Bible, you can check it out. I've forgotten the verse, but that just, you know, I went, again. and sat in my car for a bit and cried and then but I've talked to him, you know, throughout the years briefly about things. Usually for the first part of his tenure on the other side, he was quite bossy like he was in life. And he'd say, go do this. And I'd be like, okay, fine. You know, so.
He was bossy. Yeah. Well, that's, you know, I had heard that story. I mean, that he had contact once he was out of body. And I had discovered that John was gone, and I told Sasha, and we had a, you know, of course, flashback and moments and talking about. Now, I didn't know him near as well as the two of you, but I met him at the Prophets Conference, and he was just, you know, his emotions were right there on the surface. He was very heart-centered the last few years of his life, and so I found him to be quite a delight. But he didn't want to talk about the My Labs. But go ahead.
Yeah, he didn't like My Labs at all, and in fact, I didn't like My Labs, so the fact that he didn't want to talk about them, we didn't really, if we came up with an experience that was a My Lab, we'd look at it for a little bit, and then we'd move on. And we'd go to, you know, something else. I never really got the sense that I went through an entire My Lab, but I always had another alien abduction that same week that I would have a My Lab. So, and I got very clear what was happening before the 7 years was out of working with him before I got out. I was very clear, oh yeah, that's an alien one. Oh, and then 3 days later, that's a My Lab. And so, but he didn't like him. I didn't like him. So he didn't, you know, that's just a truthful thing to say. I don't think that there was, I think when there's so much, and this is what people don't understand, they thought that perhaps Dr. Mack was grasping at straws. He had hundreds of people that came to him with hundreds of experiences, probably per person. If I was having 3 experiences a week for a while, that's hundreds of experiences throughout my lifetime. So he wasn't grasping at straws. It was just, you know, this is what I want to focus on, so I'm going to focus on that.
Right.
And, you know, it turned out the way it turned out. But, yeah, John is alive and well in spirit. As far as I know, he hasn't come back yet. Anybody who's saying otherwise, I dare you to come say that to my face. But he, you know, every once in a while he'll make connections for people that in the community that need to be connected, and he has for myself and other people. You know, but he did change a lot in the whole process. That's very true.
Yeah, I'm sure that would change somebody. Well, we're on the last about 2 minutes. What would you like to say to our listeners? I mean, we'll definitely have you back on again. You're such a delight. But what would you like to convey to our listeners?
I would say don't buy into despair. Don't buy into fear. Don't buy into disempowerment. Don't buy into paranoia. Don't buy into things that don't feel true. If something doesn't, and this is a weird thing, it doesn't mean you go around saying, I know, I know, I know, I know, because the best thing to do is just keep don't know mind. But if something doesn't feel true, put it in a question mark box. Put it in a box with a question mark by it and wait and see how it turns out. And believe in yourself and believe in your serenity and be kind to yourself and be kind to other people, and I don't know, all those other platitudes.
Yeah. So what about your work? You going to do any more conferences? Do you have more books coming out? You have a website?
Well, I've been given the hard gauntlet now, 2 hours a day on inquiry until it's done, hopefully, or late spring. So, and that is about working with John and about the Harvard inquiry. And then I do readings, and I do work with experiencers at ElizabethAnglin.com, so you can find me there.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Much love and blessings. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
You need some more speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Hyla Cass, MD, Melanie Bridgeton, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous.
It is. Very dangerous.
Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to www.freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a fifth-dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome back to Stargate to the Cosmos. I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with my co-host, can you hear me? Okay. My co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin. Everybody hear me? Hold on. Can you hear me? Or am I on mute?
I can hear you, Janet.
Okay, thought I was on mute. Okay, sorry about that. So welcome back, and let's see. Co-host Dr. Sasha Lessin, producer Thomas Becker. And this second hour of the show, we are going to feature Dr. Louis Turi. And let me, I just navigated away from my bio. Let's see if I can get back to it in time. Anyway, I can't find my bio. So I will just tell you that Dr. Turi is going to talk about predictions for the rest of the year,
first
2019.
Janet,
working on it, yeah.
Tell them to solicit donations first.
Oh, yes, don't forget about donations. Thank you very much for that. So please go over to that donation button on revolution.radio and make your donation this week. And we greatly appreciate your donation. And Mad Painter Thomas Becker, are you keeping track of the tally for the donations for this month?
Yes, ma'am. We got $12.64, but bills came due here in the next 2 days, and we really need about $200 more in the next 2 days. So if people could see to it, we'd sure appreciate it.
So dig into your pockets and make a donation now so we can pay the bills and keep the lights on. Alrighty. Dr. Lessin, are you there?
Yeah, so now read Lewis's thing from his bio. So it tells a lot.
I'm logging in. I can't. Anyway, I'm stalling here. It's not letting me see it right now.
I'm on the phone right now, and I can hear you guys.
Yeah, so just talk about yourself, Lewis.
Yes.
Tell us who you are and what today's show is about, because I screwed up when I navigated away from the bio. So, go ahead.
Basically, my name is Dr. Turi, and I was born and raised in the south of France, where Nostradamus was born in Provence, and I spent pretty much the last 30 years of my life rekindling his astrological work. And that allows me to do predictions. I did prediction on various radio and television, coast to coast, and the NBC in London. I mean, I've been doing all sorts of things since 1991. That was my first show with Art Bell, where I predicted the religious war in the Middle East, and that was well before Osama bin Laden did what he did in New York. So, what I'd like to do tonight, with your permission, of course, is to explain the UCI of President Trump. UCI stands for Unique Celestial Identity. The way he is, the way he was programmed by the stars, so that people understand who he is outside of what he wants you to believe who he is. Does that make sense?
Oh, that sounds fascinating, because it would be nice to understand the astrological influences behind this very interesting personality that has emerged into the modern political scene, Donald Trump. Right. So please go explain that to us from your objective standards, I'd say, because that's really not political. It's what are the influences of the stars?
Well,
so take it away.
It is a study, and I will ask your audience when they've got a chance to Google President Trump, Dr. Turi, for example, or President Trump, a good president, and add Dr. Turi behind your search. Then you will have a full explanation of what I wrote when I found out he was going to become our president. He was born with the tail of the dragon in the sign of Sagittarius. Now, the dragon is a negative energy, a karmic energy which constricts the soul into karma and all sorts of difficulties. Now, Sagittarius rules anything and everything that has to do with foreigners, foreign land, foreign affairs. And this is why, as soon as I knew he was going to be trying to become our president, I warned the world about his natural karmic energy dealing with foreigners, that would not definitely bring us luck on that area. The tail of the dragon in the sign of Sagittarius, the best way for me to describe this to you, Janet and Ron, is the bull in the china shop. Now, people can easily relate to me today after, so many months of his presidency. But when I first wrote about him, people had no clue of what I was trying to say. When I said he's not going to bring much luck with foreigners, he is much too honest, much too direct for people liking. He is going to vex a lot of people by being too honest, so to speak, because all he is being honest. But his dragon's tail in Sagittarius is a disaster. That's the right word for dealing with foreign affairs and foreign people. And you could see that he just went to France a few days ago, and there has been already a lot of problem with the French president. But that is his nature. His dragon's head on the other side is where God or the universe will support and promote the soul. And President Donald Trump was born with the head of the dragon in Gemini. And Gemini is 246, dual. It's a dual sign. And anything that the dragon said in Gemini does can never be stopped. In other words, it's like 1 hotel, 2 hotel, 4 hotel, 8 hotels, 10 hotels, 1 golf course, 2 golf course, 10 golf course. It's just part of this task to have everything multiply. Now, Gemini is also a sign that tends to talk a lot. In fact, I have the same hidden dragon than President Trump, but my tail of the dragon in Sagittarius is not negative. That's why I did so well in this country, and this why at the age of 22 years old I left France and I went to live. So since then on foreign ground. So being a Gemini dragon said means he's able to tell you one thing and the next thing you know tell you something else. He's able to adapt, to talk, to communicate, to feel, so to speak. So anyone who has the head of the dragon in Gemini will end up on radio, writing books like I did. I have many of my books that are selling on Amazon.com. I'm a public speaker. I've done radio. I can't even remember how many radio shows or TV shows that I did for that matter. I am gifted in foreign languages, not only French or speak a little bit of English, but also a little bit of Spanish and a little bit of German. So the beauty of having a dragon set in Gemini is that it allows you to communicate and communicate well and to adapt to whomever is listening. That's why President Trump is able to actually sell fish to Eskimos, so to speak. He's able to adapt to the situation, but he cannot really be trusted because he's a jewel, and a jewel means he has to tell you what it is he feels right for the moment, but he will change his mind later on, put it this way. So this is our president. This is our current president, and because he's a jewel, President Roosevelt was also a jewel. President Clinton was also a jewel, like President Trump, and that's why these people were re-elected, so to speak. So the chance of President Trump being re-elected are very high because of his dual nature. However, the human will, or the part of God in ourselves, is much stronger than the stars. So because it's a dual sign, it splits the country in two. You can see right now the amount of conservative and liberal is 50-50. It is part of his mission, part of his karma to split everything. Now, because the dragon set rules television, radio, newspapers, CNN, and Fox, all those corporations are making billions because they talk. And they talk about what? Mr. President Trump.
Yes.
So
well, that certainly have the attention of the world, yes.
Yeah, and again, as I said, if you Google President Trump and then put my name, Dr. Turi, you will have a full explanation of our president's unique celestial identity, better than what I can explain on the radio. But at the same time, it dictates why a lot of people cannot understand why America is split. When you elect a president, you don't just elect a president, you also sign up to share his fate. And it's like, for example, let me go back to 1935 when the wise German people elected Hitler. Now, Hitler was born with the tail of the dragon in the sign of Capricorn, and Capricorn rules politics. So anything that Hitler did involving politics was going to be a huge disaster in the long run, not only for the German people, but also for the world at large. So what I'm trying to explain to people, when you vote for a president, you are going to share his fate. Like when Americans voted for President this great actor that makes America so wealthy. What is his name again? I forgot. One of our presidents.
Reagan?
Right, here you go. Excuse me. Yes, Reagan. Donald Reagan was born with the head of the dragon in the sign of Taurus. Taurus is the bull. Is the symbol chosen by any spiritual people, astrologers of the old days, to represent the solidity, money, wealth, and power. That's why they carved the bull. The bull is the sign of money. So electing a president who has the head of the dragon in Taurus would bring America with a very serious stability, solidity, and wealth. Now, the tail of the dragon of Reagan was in the sign of Scorpio, and Scorpio rules Russia. Scorpio rules death, drama, secret, everything under the table, and spying. So electing Reagan means also, because of his stars, the fate and the karma of USSR, which literally died. Scorpio is the sign of death. So electing President Reagan meant also the end of death of the Federation, the Russian Federation, Russia. It's very, very deep. Now, of course, the religious matrix, the Vatican Corporation, all those corporations do not want you to know the power behind the stars. Their goal is to indoctrinate people to make sure they don't touch astrology because there's too much power. Knowledge is power. Ignorance is evil. So by teaching and indoctrinating the entire world, don't touch astrology, for if you do, you're going to go to hell, they are keeping the wisdom themselves. And again, there is 78 miles of secret library under the Vatican, and much of it is concentrated on astrology. In fact, I have pictures on my website where you can see the many popes being taught astrology by the Vatican Council. So there is a lot of things that people do not know.
Let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
I looked up Donald Trump and Dr. Turi, and I have a page where you're predicting that there's some things that are going to happen negatively in December of 2018. Right. But you say when our own president is reptilious infected,
right?
So the situation for the world and human race is in serious trouble. So what do you mean by reptilious infected?
All right, this is a very, very serious topic. It is also something that both the religious and scientific matrices who control the information are unable and unwilling to teach. The reptilians is what Christians call the devil, the fallen angel, evil. The reptilians are a group of extraterrestrials that can only survive with chaos, with fear, with death. And in fact, the reptilians are the one who have created the 875 different religions that are plaguing and cursing the world today. So, put it this way. You have the front, you have the back, up and down, black and white, God, the devil, the yin and yang, male, female. Now, you have groups of extraterrestrial like the draconics, which are not to be lumped with the dragon, negative aspect of the dragon. The draconics are the gardener of this world. They are a positive, enlightening groups of extraterrestrial that are in charge of this solar system. And then as much as we are different and we even fight with our own family member that we love dearly, imagine what's going on with groups of extraterrestrials above your head that are fighting to own ultimate control over this really beautiful piece of property, this real estate, priceless piece of property that we call Earth. So, the reptilians are traveling in time and space through black hole. What science calls dark matter is that negative energy that gets people depressed and crazy and taking things very personally or letting their ego take over, using or abusing legal or illegal drugs, smoking, drinking, debauchery, gluttony, namely every single sin that human can have on themselves are stimulated by the reptilians. They want us to be in the dark. That's the night. That's the dark. That's where those negative entities resides, in the black holes. They transfer from one solar system to the other, from one dimension to the other through the black hole, and they live in dark matter. Of course, you cannot touch it. It's not something that you can put your hand through it and see it. But you can see it in terms of the news. People are getting so depressed, so negative. They are trying to avoid reality in using drugs and medication and alcohol and pot, everything that the reptilians must maintain. Fears, especially through religion. All religion are basically based upon fear. The more fear you have, the more negativity you generate, the more the reptilians are getting strong, so to speak. They feed like fleas on a dog. They feed on your fear, on instability, on chaos, on drama, on death. They steal people of all age, from all walks of life. They steal their body, their mind, and their soul, and they turn them into a robot of destruction, killing innocent people, and at the end killing themselves. So that's what the reptilians are all about. And again, if you go to drturi.com and you scroll down a little bit, you can click on another show that I did giving information about the reptilians. But I'm glad you invited me on your show so I can point out and explain a little bit more the reason why people are going insane and why this world is going totally out of order. So if we do not teach people or make people understand, most importantly, that the future is nothing else than the reincarnation of the thought, people are going to keep constantly feeding the reptilians by being negative, by being insecure about tomorrow, about their own fate. They won't have no grounding, no hopes for the future. And this is exactly what the reptilians intend to do, to create such a big chaos that at the end, if there is a nuclear exchange that blew up the entire place, and it's free for the reptilians to come here and do what the hell they want with our beautiful home. So now,
I always thought that they're coming in to take the prime real estate, and so they're they're terraforming and they're creating all this chaos because, ultimately they want all of our minerals. We have a planet that's full of minerals, everything, resources. So go ahead and continue, and then I have another question when you're done next.
You got it.
Pause.
The idea is to train people, okay? Instead of giving room to fear, insecurity, to anything that is feeding the reptilians, is to battle them on their own game, beat them on their own game by supporting the draconis. The draconis, or the positive, the light angels, so to speak, those extraterrestrials are the gardener of this world. If it wasn't for the draconis fighting above your head, right here, right now, the reptilians would have won the war on Earth a long time ago. But again, this type of information is not allowed on the traditional media. They don't want you to talk about things that scare people or that are too far ahead, too controversial, so to speak. And sad enough, people are losing so much by not realizing the importance to be positive regardless of what is thrown at you every day, regardless how bad you feel, regardless how desperate you are. You got to be positive, because we are, all of us, responsible at the universal level for the fate of the entire world. So if more people like you and I start to focus the thought process in a progressive and positive way, there's absolutely no reason for the reptilians to hang around and poison more people to lead them to, at the end, fulfill their own agenda. We don't want that. We want to be as positive and as faithful as possible to each other and to the world.
So if we up our vibes, so to speak, it will not be congruent for them, and they will disappear. They'll go away.
Yeah, but there is, the reptilians are cosmic conscious. By this, I mean they know when the moon is waxing. They know when the moon goes through various signs of the zodiac, through the belt of the zodiac. They know exactly when the moon is full, and after the full moon, when the moon is waning, they know that humans are very vulnerable. So not only do they use human psyche to poison them, but they also use the negative cosmic winds, which I call my SOS to the world, deadly windows, to create natural disaster. There is absolutely no accident in anything and everything that's going on this world. But people do not have cosmic consciousness. The reptilians do. So they are using all the celestial bodies at their advantage to destroy, so to speak, and to put us down to the bottom where they want us to be. Now, if the majority of people understand that after the new moon, things are like now, we are on the waxing moon right now. It's like the farmers. I'm sure you heard of a farmer's almanac.
Yes,
the farmers don't plant when they feel like. They watch the moon. And right now, the moon is waxing, so it's time to go out, to meet people, to sign contracts, to get married, to go on a cruise, to take an airplane. Because after the full moon, when people do things when they feel like, they are going against God's design. They are going against God's cosmic divinity who speaks to us through the sign. They do not know. They decide to jump out of an airplane after the full moon. The next thing you know, the parachute do not open. They decide to go on a cruise after the full moon. The next thing you know, they all end up constipated or poisoned with diarrhea. I have to be very honest. It's very important to do what the Mayan used to do, to all what disappeared civilization used to do, is to synchronize with the universal laws, something that science and religion do not want you to deal with, because science turns people into atheists who wants to go to Mars, and Absolutely unbelievable. People who believe that. All religious people who believe you're going to go to hell because you are speaking the cosmic language of the Creator. And that's where we're at. Luckily, there are people like you and Ron that are helping gifted people like us. We are on your show to pass on a different perspective to reality and exposing the truth as it is. So the last thing you want to do is to laugh about astrology.
Yeah, what should people do when, right after the full moon? Just sit there and meditate, or what can you do? We're kind of limited, right?
Yeah, after the full moon, you cut your hair, you clean the house, you throw things away, you do a garage sale, you finish what you started on the good moon, you make your plan. You don't go physical. Physical is during the waxing moon. After the full moon, it's a spiritual side. You have a physical and you have spiritual. It's a perfect time to dwell with the spirit, to do a cleansing, to start a diet. Doesn't mean you got to go to bed and do nothing for 2 weeks and cry your eyes out. You have to use the gearbox intelligently, like the ancient used to do, so that God created the stars and the heavens for more than the sake of beauty. He gave them to us for interpretation, so you may lead a safer and more productive life. That's what it comes down to, Janet. Mm-hmm. Knowledge is power. Ignorance is evil.
Knowledge is power. So let's go back to Trump. Kitty Moon.
I'd like to also, if while we're doing this thing about Trump, because I'm left back there, is I would like to know your astrological appraisal of Mr. Macron and also of Mr. Trudeau. They're so big in our lives here.
I am not a psychic, even though that my mother says that I'm much more psychic than I would like to believe. I am not. I am an astrologer. I am an astrophile, and I developed software with Alwan Software in Los Angeles, the same type of software that NASA's used to send the shuttle. But I know a little bit more than NASA. NASA thinks the planets are rocks that are made out there. They tell you their distance, their composition to amuse all the scientists, when actually those planets were created by God himself because they have a divine mission and something that is interrelated with our dense physical world. As far as the question of anyone that you have for me, unless I have their date of birth, unless I check on my program, there is no way for me to enter their UCI and to check on their fate. All that I do is mathematics, is logical, is rational. And this is why when I gave exact dates, not only on natural disaster like Katrina or 9/11 on national radio, but when I gave a very specific date of terrorist attack, I had the FBI visiting me twice. They came in my house twice. They said, how the hell did you know that on that day we're going to have a terrorist attack, Mr. Turi? I tried to explain to those guys that instead of asking for my Social Security, my green card, and see if I am a sleeping cell who works with terrorists, they should dig into astroforensics so that they would know when the next terrorist attack will take place. Or when the next earthquake's going to hit. So, it's all mathematics, but there is no enough people that are curious enough to dig into God tools. God's celestial nature is something that anybody can master, but you need to put your will, you need to put your drive into it, and that's why I'm going to be teaching in Sedona, and hopefully in Hawaii, 7-day courses where I can help people to become more cosmic conscious and use those cosmic winds to better their lives. So I'm sorry, but I cannot answer you as far as Macron is concerned because I don't have his astrological chart. This does not stop me to investigate his fate, how it's going to affect the French people and the world, and write an article about it. But I know President Trump's stars very well because I study them for months and years now.
So how is Trump going to affect the world? What can we expect?
All I can tell you is in December, I wrote a quatrain. I'm sure you read it. I wrote a quatrain about Mr. Trump, where I said the evil spirit of Hitler will die in December 2018. Okay? Now, when I said President Trump, the spirit of Hitler will die, I don't mean, it's hypothetically speaking, you know. It is not like he's going to be killed. All I can tell you is that I look at the stars, and the stars, as I speak through God, okay, I speak the language of the God, or God himself, so to speak, I know that in December 2018, something dramatic will take place with President Trump. Now, I have the details, but I don't want the FBI to knock at my door again. So I have learned to be cautious when I am on the radio or on television to give predictions, because I want to.
You know, it looks like he's heading for some kind of incident to declare martial law or state of emergency and quash the investigations against him and lift the civil liberties of his critics and put people in jail. That's what it looks like to me. But I'm just an observer.
Right. Are you still there, Dr. Turi, or did we lose you? A mad painter, did we lose Dr. Turi?
It's showing him still here.
Okay. Anyway, we'll assume that you can still hear us, Dr. Turi. But I'm curious what you mean that the spirit of Hitler will die. So if you just look at the spirit of Hitler, which was a tyrant, a despot, a dictator. So if that will die within Trump, you know, is he going to turn around and become like a Jimmy Carter, go out and build houses for the poor? I'm looking at that. You know, maybe we should hang up and call him right back. What do you think, Thomas? We lost
I can do that.
Dr. Turi. Okay.
Hello?
Hello? There he is.
Are you here?
Okay.
What happened?
Yeah, I don't know.
What happened?
We were talking and you were gone. But let's go back to what we were saying about the spirit of Hitler will die in Trump.
Okay, I'm so sorry about. I don't understand why we've been cut off here. Maybe anyway. I don't want to know. Okay.
No, it's not.
As I said, when I give prediction nowadays, I have to be blurry. I have to be like Nostradamus, right? I don't have to worry about the French Inquisition, but at the same time, I have to be a little bit cautious. What I see with President Trump is in December 2018, which is next month. It's not far, okay? During the full moon in December, you are going to remember Dr. Turi on your show tonight. Okay,
right.
I'm not saying that President Trump will be killed. Again, I don't want the FBI to come and visit me again.
Mm-hmm.
I will not make this prediction. All I'm trying to tell you is that hypothetically, if you understand this word, hypothetically, President Trump and his Hitler legacy will die. That's the best way I can put that prediction to you. Again, Nostradamus had to use very blurry verses because he had to keep his head on his shoulder. I don't. My quatrains are very simple, very direct, and the keywords are very obvious. So it's just a matter.
Louis, is there some other specific prediction that you will not make? Tell us what other predictions you will not make. That would be very interesting.
Okay, there are the new dragon. The dragon has changed sign on November 7th. That is just 10 days ago, right? So what they
today's the 11th. That's 7th. It's 4 days ago.
4 days ago. Okay, that is the real new year in the tourist family, in the tourist tradition. When the dragon changed sign, That's the change of God. That's when the real New Year, not the religious New Year of December 25th when Christ was born again. No. The real New Year starts with the dragon changing signs. 4 days ago, the dragon was in the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius rules anything to do with technology, anything to do with nukes and the sudden release of energy, of earthquakes. And 2 years ago, I made a prediction to be ready for some serious sudden release of energy that will produce all sorts of terrible natural disaster never heard before. And of course, I mentioned also talks about nukes, and we got plenty of that last 2 years. Now, the tail of the dragon was in Leo. Leo is a sign that rules fire. And I wrote in my quatrain that God will never be found anywhere to stop fires. And I guess I was right if you see what's happening in California now and last 2 years as far as fires are concerned. So this dragon is now gone. Now, the new 2019 Nostradamus Dragon Forecast is an ebook that should be ready tonight. I was about to announce it tonight on the radio, but my paginator, editor, and everything else, they had too much work to finish this book. So it will be available to the public for each sign of the zodiac very soon. But let me give you a hint to what's ahead of us. The tail of the dragon has moved on November 7th into the sign of Capricorn. Now, Capricorn is the symbol chosen by Christianity to represent the devil, the head of the goat, right? Now, Capricorn rules England, the snobs, the rich, large corporation, anything and everything to do with very successful people in power, CEO, FCO, member of the government, politics. Now you can see how this dragon, which has been void, of course, the last 6 months, has already influences the political temperature, the political scenery in the United States and the world. Do I make sense yet? Okay, now void, of course, means one dragon is opening. It's like when the moon is in two signs, Cancer, Leo, for example. Now the moon is giving you the void, of course, energy, which is a mixture of Leo and Cancer. Right now, the dragon is moving away from Leo, Aquarius, and it has entered the world of Capricorn, Cancer. Okay, now. And for 6 months, that dragon was affecting the political front. And we've seen more than what we should have as far as the Trump administration is concerned. But that's how it is, because I am not into politics. I cannot even vote. I'm still French for good reasons. And then I respect people's position. Anybody who votes for a president is because this person vibrates at the cosmic energy of their chosen politician. In other words, if you have a very conservative UCI, that would promote a conservative politician that you will sign for, and you will stop abortion. Okay? Does that make sense again?
Yes.
Now, the tail of the dragon in Capricorn means every single large corporation has to be restructured. Now, Capricorn rules also the Illuminati, the people who have the power and use and abuse this power. We could, for example, mention the gun manufacturer. The gun manufacturer cannot anymore be not interested or not caring about kids using those guns to shoot each other. Do I make sense again?
Yes.
Okay, so large corporations that are abusing society we have to go belly up. Large corporations or dominate the market and killing the small people have to be restructured. Do you remember a few years ago? Do you remember the real estate going berserk? I was in coast to coast, and I told George Norrie, I said, George, be ready for a full restructure of the real estate. The next thing you know now, but I was dead on well before. So this is what's coming up to us again. But during those days, the poor people lost their houses, they lost their security, and the corporation survived. Because during those days, 8 to 10 years ago, when I made that prediction, the tail of the dragon was in cancer. But now, as I'm speaking tonight, the head of the dragon is in cancer, not the tail, which means it's not the little people that are going to suffer, but the large corporation, the banking industry, those corporations who runs the food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the armament industry, who are using and abusing the American people. Capricorn is a very karmic sign. Capricorn is ruled and controlled by a planet called Saturn. Saturn in Greek mythology is called the Great Malefic. Saturn rules karma, and there is no one single human being on this planet who will be able to escape this karma. And when humans group themselves and form corporation, the karma is becoming even worse to these people. Now, the first country that is going to be targeted is England, and the hierarchy, the king and the queen, who owns the power, the privileged select, the supremely wealthy people. These are the ones targeted. Last year, I said famous people and children will be targeted, and guess what? A lot of famous people have been targeted by the Cosmic Code and the reptilians, and I was right. Okay? You watch the news. Now, the real estate is going to be literally exploding. Now, how can the real estate explode? Right? There is only two things that can happen, and it's outside of our control. So it can only be a war, let's hope not, or it can be a natural disaster, like a big huge earthquake on the California coast that will force millions of people relocating from devastated area, like it's happening right now with the fire. Believe me, thousands of people are considering now getting away from California and moving to a state like our state, which is free of natural disaster. Do I make sense again?
Yes, sure.
So all that I see involving the real estate is going to be extraordinarily progressive as the corporations are going to be forced to restructure. Okay? Now, abusive corporations who have built their wealth and their grounding by screwing us, these are the ones that are going to hit the dust. Do I make sense? And they are from every single walks of life. Anything from the NRA to the banking industry to the food, drug industry. Every single corporation and all these big guys that are at the top are going to go down. Like I mentioned, famous people will hit the ground, and you can see what happened with Roseanne Barr, and then with that famous Fox TV announcer. Both of them were born in November, and both of them had a very negative dragon stellium Leo, and both of them experienced unfame. Those people are very wealthy, they are very rich, but they don't have cosmic consciousness, and they are not lucky enough to know me, because they would invest and save themselves, save their life, save their career, and even save their life. But hey, I can only attract the people that vibrate at our own cosmic speed, and that would be you, Ron, and all your beautiful audience of very smart, curious, spiritually advanced listeners.
Thank you. Wow. So,
now,
go ahead, continue.
So, I'm so sorry, honey. I'm channeling, so when I channel...
Continue.
Cancer rules the stomach. Cancer is home, family, real estate, food, commodity. So people who are going to invest in those areas are going to be going just phenomenal. Okay? Cancer rules women. It's the moon controls women. I lecture on the power of the moon and how it affects women. The moon cycle is 28 and a half days, which is exactly the same cycle that woman menstruation. It's no accident, but 3/4 of the women out there in this big world, I'd say 99.9%, are either religious fanatic or atheist, educated atheist, and believe for all the wrong reasons that my cosmic work or astrology is a pseudoscience, when it is not. It's extraordinarily accurate, and this is why it has been cast aside, ridiculed, and taken away from us, because knowledge is power, ignorance is evil, and they want to keep us in that darkness to feed the reptilians. Now, Capricorn rules also the government, the army, the navy, generals. Jesus. When this little book comes out, I tell you right away, it should be out any days now. My webmaster is also helping me to put it on my website. It costs only $10. It is universal, which means all that I spoke about tonight and more is in this book, and it is also personal. It will touch you at a very personal level. And in this Nostradamus 2019 personal and universal prediction, I also translate how the slow-moving planets like Saturn, the malefic karmic Saturn, or the great benefic Jupiter, and Pluto, the planet of death and drama, and Neptune, the deceiving nirvanic planet. I'm talking on how those very specific, long-lasting moving planets are going to affect you at a personal level. All that for $10. That because I want people to get the real thing. That's why I make it affordable.
Wow.
So that, now, what if I recall, Janet, can I be personal with you, hon?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Were you born in February? Yes.
February 6, 1954.
All right. Well, you're not even shy of your age. That's beautiful. I'm 4 years older than you.
Okay, we're perfect.
February. Now, you're going to have, just to give you a little idea, okay, because I owe you that one. You're going to have the impact of the dragon affecting the sign of Capricorn in your 12th house, which is your subconscious, and you're going to have the dragon's head affecting your 6th house of work and health. Now, the dragon's head is progressive. It has a Jupiterian, expansive, protective energy. It's going to affect your work, your service to the world, and, of course, your health. So, Jupiter expands everything that it touches. So, careful. Move a little bit more because Jupiter is going to give you a lot of good food, a lot of good things for you, okay? So it's important for you to move a little bit more when Jupiter is in your house of work and health. But Jupiter rules foreigners, teaching, publishing, and is right on your service to the world. So that's a great option for you to travel, to learn, to teach, and to deal with foreigners that will change your perception of reality. I guess I'm one of those. Now, the tail of the dragon will be cruising through your 12th house or your subconscious. And that means God, through the cosmic code, wants you to restructure the unstructurable. I mean, you're talking about the subconscious. How do you structure the subconscious or the superconscious? Well, you structure it by learning the power, the inner power that you were born with, and tap on it. This is why I want to do a lecture on the superconscious and hypnotize people and help them to dig in this supreme power so they can build about, anything. Their very dearest wishes can become a reality. And I can give you example anytime you want. Right now, if you want to, on how it works.
Okay.
All right.
We have like 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna give you an example. Okay, a very simple example.
Okay.
I was 18 years old, and my younger brother was 15, and we were driving to work every day in the back of a truck. And every single night when we came back from work, my younger brother was saying to me, "Louis, another less day to leave. One less day to leave." At the beginning, when he was saying that, I didn't ask any question, but he kept saying this day after day after day. I thought, my gosh, I hope he's going to stop. And then finally, I went berserk. I said, "Vincent, please, what the hell's going on with you? Stop. Why do you say that every single day at the same time?" He says, "I don't know, Louis." The next thing you know, 6 months later, my younger 15-year-old brother died.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Yeah. He, at a subconscious level, was warning me that he was going to go. That's where I've learned to read omens, physical and spiritual. Now, that is a really, really negative message from the superconscious that my younger brother gave me physically, days after days after days, weeks at a time when we were coming back from work every night. But I have stories to tell you that are so incredibly positive that it's amazing. Now, again, later on when I come back, if you want to, I will give you a better, more positive explanation on how the superconscious works. And I pick up a much better scenario this time. But this is how I learned, and on experience. Remember, incredible experiences breed incredible people that have incredible wisdom to share. That's all it comes down to it. I've been digging with extraterrestrials since I am 7 years old. Now, how do you tell people UFOs and ETs are real when it's such a very private and personal experience? To me, there is no question of the reality of extraterrestrial. Absolutely not. It is not a religion. It's not a belief. It's real.
We'll have to take a pause there. We'll have you back again very soon. And much love and blessings and aloha. Thank you, listeners.
Thank you.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free, but there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver Eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country is founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our